Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And one big topic over the last couple weeks has been the performance between the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. As we all know, the Xbox Series X is more powerful on paper, but some of these launch games have yielded some very surprising results where the PlayStation 5 is actually performing better in some situations. This has been a little shocking for some, and Xbox responded today, so we'll talk about that here in just a bit. Also, the PlayStation 5 is getting off to a very hot start, and we're starting to see some early success there, so stay tuned for that as well. As always though, we got plenty of things to talk about today, so to kick this episode off, we have the Golden Joystick Game Awards. While a lot of people primarily focus on the Game Awards show hosted by Jeff Keighley, the Golden Joystick Awards is a nice alternative. This is voted on by fans, and as we've been seeing over the last week, the Game Awards can be a little controversial. Those games are nominated by critics, and it can be disappointing when you see certain games get snubbed. Ori and Half-Life Alyx not getting nominated this year really stands out to me, but yeah, the Golden Joystick Awards are decided by fans. Well, the winner has already been decided, and it's The Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, apparently 3 million people voted, and The Last of Us Part 2 won multiple awards including Game of the Year, Best Storytelling, Best Visual Design, Best Audio, and Best PlayStation Game of the Year. Now this is interesting because this has been a very polarizing game to say the least. A lot of people absolutely hated this game, but it also seems like a lot of people really liked it. And I think that's where a lot of the online conversation goes. It could just be the vocal minority, but there isn't really much of a middle ground here. You either love this game or you hate it, and I can understand that. Now, for my personal opinion, I think from a technical standpoint, it's excellent. The animations are fantastic, the production values are outstanding, and just overall, it's a very impressive game. For me though, I had to ask myself, is it a good game or is it just impressive? For me, it's kind of that Halo 5 situation. I wasn't really invested into the story because I would have rather played as somebody else, and the person I did play as, I didn't necessarily like because she did a thing that I can't forgive. I won't go into spoiler territory or anything like that, but if you've played the game, you probably know what I'm talking about. So I think for a lot of people, that could be one reason they didn't like it, but again, as the Golden Joystick Awards shows, a lot of people do really like this game. Let me know your thoughts on that though. Did you like The Last of Us Part 2 or not? Also, we get to talk about Marvel's Avengers once again, and its struggles continue. Yeah, this is unfortunate, but Square Enix revealed they still have not recouped development costs of Marvel's Avengers. That is not a good sign for a big AAA game like this. This is a big IP, and it cost them a lot of money and time to make this game. I mean, if you think about it, Crystal Dynamics was the studio behind this game, and they're very talented. They're most well known for their work on the Tomb Raider franchise, and those are really good games. So you're kind of expecting big things from the Avengers. This is a big IP, they got a big budget, and they also have a very talented studio working on it. I think the problem with this game ultimately was their focus on making it a games as a service type game. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing per se, but for a game like this, it may have been better suited for a single player experience. They were also trying to monetize the Avengers by making certain skins and characters exclusive. As an example, the most popular Avengers Spider-Man ended up being a PlayStation exclusive, so if you were an Xbox or PC player, you're just kind of left out. And I'm sure that didn't sit well with much of the game community. And then to top it off, the Avengers launched with a ton of bugs. Now from my understanding, they've only sold 60% of what they were expecting. That's quite a bit below expectations if that's true. It seems like they're still trying to salvage the situation though, and maybe they can improve over time, but we'll have to wait and see. I like Crystal Dynamics, so I'm hoping the best for them. Hey, let's maybe go back to the Tomb Raider franchise. I'm always up for some more Tomb Raider. Moving on, we got a nice little update for the Metro franchise. These are really good games that sometimes goes a bit under the radar, but one thing about them is that they have always been visually very impressive. In fact, Metro 2033 was a good game to do PC benchmarks on years ago, and since then they've always been good looking games, and Metro Exodus is no exception. Once again, it looks excellent, and they're just so atmospheric. Really, if you haven't played these games before, you might want to check them out. Well, we now have another reason to do just that because Metro Exodus will be getting a next generation upgrade. This includes better frame rate, reduced load times, increased resolution, and ray tracing. Now that could be really cool. I think ray tracing in Metro Exodus would look really good if it can somehow also maintain good performance. That still is a question with these next generation consoles, but that's not the only thing they announced though, because they also partnered up with Saber Interactive to do a multiplayer spin-off for Metro. Now that could be interesting. Metro has a fascinating world, and Saber Interactive previously developed World War Z, and that was a 4-player co-op zombie killing game, so maybe they could do something like that with the Metro franchise. We'll see how all that turns out though, but if you do like the Metro franchise, not only are they working on a new game, but they're also upgrading Metro Exodus, and they're working on a multiplayer spin-off. Speaking of visuals though, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 have been out for a couple weeks now, and multi-platform game comparisons are starting to hit the web. Digital Foundry of course goes into great detail about all of the minor differences between the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X version of each game, and so far, it's yielded some very intriguing results. The Xbox Series X, after all, is the more powerful console on paper, but in some situations, the PlayStation 5 is actually outperforming the Xbox Series X. So in a game like Call of Duty Cold War, the Xbox Series X wins when it comes to ray tracing performance. However, in 120 frames per second mode, the PlayStation 5 performs better. The same can be said in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where the PlayStation 5 is smoother than the Xbox Series X version. Now that's a little odd, and it sparked a debate on what exactly is happening here. Well, Xbox did respond to The Verge about these early performance issues, and this is what they had to say. We are aware of performance issues in a handful of optimized titles on Xbox Series X and S, and are actively working with our partners to identify and resolve the issues to ensure an optimal experience. As we begin a new console generation, our partners are just now scratching the surface of what next-gen consoles can do, and minor bug fixes are expected as they learn how to take full advantage of our new platform. We are eager to continue working with developers to further explore the capability of Xbox Series X and S in the future. So there you have it, and this is about what I expected. I've kind of mentioned this in the past, but you need to understand that these are just launch games. Launch games pretty much never completely take advantage of new consoles. Now to be clear, both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X will get better as time goes on. The more developers work with said game, the better they get. I mean, you can actually go back and look at how games evolve over a generation. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, as an example, looked much better than Black Flag. Now, as for some of the frame rate issues early on for the Xbox Series X, I do expect that to be fixed as time goes on. From my understanding, developers got the Xbox Series X dev kits much later than the PlayStation 5. They were apparently only allowed to submit their games in June, and dev kits were very limited. So that is pretty late, and it could be some of the reasons we're seeing some differences early on. Phil Spencer said that was because they waited a little longer than the competition because they were waiting on some specific AMD technology for their chip. So because they did that, it does make the short term more difficult for developers as they push to get their games out for launch, but it should give better long-term results. Again, I've been seeing a lot of heated debates on this topic over the last week, but just as Xbox said, we're only scratching the surface right now. For the time being, just be happy with your new consoles, and I wouldn't nitpick every little performance issue with either console. This is early in the generation. Now, if these issues persist 12 months from now, that's an entirely different story. Then we can actually say that there is a problem. Again though, the Xbox Series X performance will likely improve, and for that matter, so will the PlayStation 5's ray tracing performance. Developers will get better at this, and really, I think if anything, the early generation is incredibly promising. We're seeing a lot of 60 FPS games early on, and that's incredible alone. I'm so glad we can move on beyond 30 frames per second. Let's talk about the PlayStation 5 though, and I've been spending a lot of time playing PlayStation 5 over the last couple weeks. I just now finished my first playthrough of Demon's Souls, and that may possibly be my favorite game this year. It truly is amazing. I don't do this very often, but I might try to get a platinum trophy in it if I didn't already mess that up. I may have made a mistake by not choosing a specific starting ring, and that will definitely suck if that's true, but nonetheless, the PlayStation 5 has gotten off to a great start. Sony today revealed that the PlayStation 5 was the biggest launch ever for PlayStation. Now, we know that PlayStation has had some very successful launches in the past, so this is great news. I don't think it's overly surprising though, because the amount of hype for this console really is just absolutely insane. That's the thing though, the only thing that can hold this console back right now is the stock. Whatever they put on shelves, it's going to sell. But still, exactly how many consoles have they sold so far? That's the question that everybody wants to know, and just like Xbox, Sony is being vague here. If we look at the PlayStation 4 launch though, we can get somewhat of a better idea. The PlayStation 4 sold 1 million units day one, so we know that the PlayStation 5 has at least sold more than that. Also, the PlayStation 4 sold 2.1 million in its first 2 weeks, and if they're talking about that time frame, then they've already surpassed that. That's huge, but overall it's still expected. PlayStation is a huge brand. They have some really good launch games, and like I said, they're going to sell whatever they can put on shelves. I believe we're probably going to be seeing stock issues well into 2021 because that's how much demand there is for the PlayStation 5. With that said, Sony did reassure fans that more stock is on the way this holiday, so if you haven't secured your new console yet, stay vigilant because more is on the way. I would expect a big restock for Black Friday, so that's the time I would really be paying attention. Of course, you have to battle it out with bots as we talked about yesterday, and that's frustrating, but hopefully you get what you want here soon. Nonetheless, big congrats to PlayStation on their successful launch. Seriously, I'm very impressed with the PlayStation 5 so far. It's very fast, the DualSense controller is great, and I for one have greatly enjoyed the launch lineup. On to our last topic though, and I'll try to make this one quick, but we did get the PlayStation Plus December lineup. This includes Just Cause 4, Worms Rumble, and Rocket Arena. Yeah, this is overall another solid month for PlayStation Plus. I mean, Worms Rumble is a brand new game, so you're actually going to be able to pick that one up day one on December 1st. Who knows, it could end up being another surprise hit. If you think about it, PlayStation Plus has produced a few surprise hits in the past. This includes both Rocket League and Fall Guys, and while I don't expect it to be as big as those, I do like seeing these games debut on PlayStation Plus. That's pretty cool to see, and well, Worms has always been a good franchise. I do think Worms Rumble looks interesting at the very least, and it even includes Battle Royale mode. If you have PlayStation Plus though, you might want to pick these games up in December. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.